Rhiannon, Audrey, three 17-year-old girls that, called 30 for flats their home, had decided to spend their Friday night in the woods, a mix of boredom and a desperate search for something thrilling. High on Molly, smoking weed, and sipping White Claw like it was water, they had no idea this would be the night that their lives, what was left of them, would change forever. Rhiannon was the pretty one, the kind of girl who could make a torn t-shirt look like high fashion. Her dirty blonde hair, though always greasy, somehow added to her allure. She had a long, thin nose that she hated, but most of the guys at school found exotic. She was known for three things: drugs, snowboarding, and sex, though the order depended on her mood. Audrey was her exact opposite. Pale, sickly, with a bad posture that made her look years older. She caked her face in too much makeup in a futile attempt to hide her acne. Her greasy, stringy brown hair lightened to a sad, dull blonde at the tips, a look that screamed cheap. Despite it all, she was always up for a good time, often compensating for her lack of brains with her willingness to do whatever the guys wanted. Then there was Lily, loudmouthed and average in every way, except for her greed. From North Korea, Lily had a face that was so plain, it could blend into any crowd. Of fact, she tried to overcome with layers of cheap makeup and nails. So long they belonged in a museum. Each nail was a miniature work of art, though art might be too generous a term. They were more like gaudy scenes from a dollar store that somehow found their way onto her fingers. Her favorite words were babe and lemabaro, a constant reminder to everyone around her that she never intended to pay anyone back. That night, the girls decided to take a shortcut through the dense woods behind their town. They'd heard all the warnings, of course, ghost stories about the cursed woods, where people disappeared, never to be found again. But high and drunk as they were, the thrill was too good to pass up. The footage recovered from Lily's and Audrey's phone starts off shaky, full of giggles and slurred speech. Rhiannon, trying to keep her balance on the uneven ground, was already regretting the decision, though she'd never admit it. The camera captured the back of Lily's head as she led the way, demanding that the others keep up. "You coming or what, babe?" Lily shouted, her voice grating in the eerie silence of the woods. The girls laughed, oblivious to the shadows that seemed to stretch out, following them. Rhiannon's phone footage caught a glimpse of Audrey, stumbling, her greasy hair sticking to her makeup-caked face. The girls walked deeper into the forest, and as the night wore on, their laughter began to fade, replaced by something darker, more sinister. The wind picked up, carrying with it whispers that were barely audible, but enough to make the girls uneasy. The camera footage shows their faces, confusion etched into their features as they glanced around, trying to make sense of the eerie murmurs. "What's that?" Audrey slurred, her words heavy and slow, the molly still working its way through her system. The camera caught the way her eyes darted around, wide with fear, despite the drugs. Lily shrugged it off, her voice brimming with false bravado. "It's just the wind, babe. Don't be a wuss." But the footage doesn't lie, there was fear in her eyes too. Suddenly, the camera jerks, and Rhiannon lets out a scream. Lily had just disappeared, no sound, no warning. The phone captured the immediate chaos as Audrey and Rhiannon scrambled to find her, the camera swinging wildly, catching glimpses of the dark forest around them. "She was right here." Rhiannon's voice was panicked, the camera showing nothing but trees and darkness. The girls shouted Lily's name, their voices growing more desperate with each passing second. But there was no response, only the sinister whispering that seemed to grow louder. For a moment, the footage shows Rhiannon's pale face, streaked with tears, before the screen goes black. When it returns, the camera is shaking, catching glimpses of Audrey stumbling through the woods alone, her face now twisted in terror. She wasn't running, she was dragging herself along, as if something unseen was pulling her deeper into the forest. The footage from Lily's phone picks up much later, showing Audrey covered in blood and dirt, her clothes torn. She's wandering along a highway, miles away from where they started, her eyes vacant. A passing truck driver found her 100 miles from the forest, muttering incoherently, her once loud voice now reduced to a whisper. The doctors who examined Audrey after she was found were horrified. She had been brutally assaulted, her body bore deep claw marks, bruises, and signs of strangulation. The DNA recovered from her body was unlike anything they had ever seen, not human, not animal, but something in between. Audrey's condition only worsened over the months that followed. She regressed into a near-vegetative state, unable to speak, constantly masturbating, and soiling herself like a newborn. The doctors couldn't explain the bizarre behavior or the fact that her DNA had somehow fused. with that of the creature that had attacked her. In early 2024, scientists secretly harvested several DNA samples from Audrey's body. Of these, they were able to cultivate and incubate 9 specimens. The footage from the lab, also recovered, shows the creatures at 3 months old twisted, monstrous beings with sharp claws and eyes that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. They were neither human nor animal, but something far more terrifying. Rhiannon's body was never found, and Lily's fate remains unknown. The townspeople whisper about the cursed woods, warning others never to venture into the darkness. But the footage tells a different story, one of horror, that even the strongest warnings could never convey. If you're brave enough to see the video and pictures from the 2 phones, and the stolen lab footage of those creatures at 3 months old, do us a solid, like, follow, and leave a comment saying, "I wanna see the footage, please."